When society is broken and demands for justice go unmet, these people don't shut up. They don't give up.
We are here. We are not going anywhere.
They rise up.
And I am gonna stand and fight.
These are their stories. Tonight. When the highest office in the land gets infected with toxic sexism,
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy.
it leads to the largest single-day mass protest in American history.
The revolution starts here.
I was staggered by the turnout. People couldn't move. Washington was so full.
Igniting a movement around the world.
2, 4, 6, 8.
It's a revolution that'll require women to risk everything.
What was surprising and galvanizing was the bravery of women that stepped forward.
I just hope that no other young woman is ever led up to a hotel room.
This is the story not just of an uprising, but a reckoning.
Fire erupted, and women all over the world found an outlet.
This is Rise Up, the Women's March.
You gotta get the thumbs up. Can't be too happy.
On October 7th, 2016, barely a month before the presidential election, the Washington Post releases a sensational recording from 2005 of presidential candidate Donald Trump speaking to an Access Hollywood reporter on a hot mic.
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
It was just absolutely astonishing that someone like him could be the nominee to be the next president of the United States of America.
In response to the leaked tape, women in 15 cities across America gather outside Trump-branded buildings to protest his candidacy for president. One of the largest protests is in Trump's hometown, New York. Trump dismisses the tape as locker room talk, nothing more than a normal exchange between men behind closed doors.
It is shocking that anybody would think that that's okay to use as an excuse.
But for many, the Access Hollywood tape is only the latest example of what they believe is Trump's transparent contempt for women. Within days of the tape being leaked, a number of women reveal sexual transgressions by Trump, dating from the early 80s to the very recent past.
About 12 years ago, as a young receptionist in Trump Tower, I was forcibly kissed by Mr. Trump during our first introduction.
In addition to these stories of misconduct towards women, from the very beginning of his campaign against Democrat Hillary Clinton, Trump and his supporters target her gender as a weakness.
One of the most popular t-shirts that you could wear to a Trump rally said, "Life's a bitch, don't vote for one." Or, "Hillary sucks, but not like Monica."
For many Americans, Trump's rallies are reviving the country's age-old war between the sexes.
It became very clear that people actively did not like this person because she was a woman. It was, that lady's a bitch and I hate her. And that shocked me.
These attacks on the first female major party candidate spotlight issues that have been simmering across the culture, at work, at home, and at school. That June of 2016, Stanford University freshman Brock Turner stands trial for sexually assaulting an unconscious young woman.
The fact that it took place, behind a garbage bin, the fact that the perpetrator and the victim did not know one another beforehand, it's one of the things that makes this case really stand out, and part of what I think made it a more effective case in terms of legal prosecution.
But Turner, a star athlete, gets an unusually light sentence, just 6 months. The judge's ruling ignites a national debate about rape culture against the backdrop of an historic election.
I feel like
Throughout 2016, there's all this energy around misogyny and consent and rape culture on campus. There weren't a lot of people talking about what had happened to them at the time, but that was quickly gonna change, and it needed to.
On the campaign trail, Trump is also talking about crime and punishment, not of Brock Turner, but of his opponent. And with a wink from Trump, supporters start calling for Clinton's incarceration.
When Lock Her Up started happening, it felt weird. It felt like there was an emphasis on the her.
Like his supporters, Trump also revels in gender-charged personal attacks against his opponent. During the final presidential debate, televised on CNN, he refers to Clinton as a nasty woman.
But what we want to do is to replenish the Social Security Trust Fund by making sure that we have sufficient resources.
The phrase proves popular among his supporters. In response, her supporters undermine its power to offend by co-opting it for themselves.
And I didn't really know what it meant to be a nasty woman, but I was like, you know what? I'm a nasty woman. We're all nasty around here.
Reclaiming this potent phrase proves inspiring for the women opposed to Trump.
I just remember writing down, I'm a nasty woman. And I begin writing and I just can't stop. Yeah, I'm nasty. Like the struggle of women still beating equality into the world because our rights have been beaten out of us for too long, but this fight will continue to embody this nastiness. I'm nasty, like red, white, and blue bruises, nasty, like Elizabeth, Amelia, Rosa, Eleanor, Sonia, Malala, Michelle, our mothers, our sisters, us. Sisters are all nasty.
Election Day, November 8th. At the Javits Center in New York, Clinton supporters eagerly await the results, but the mood goes from confident to concern to outright disbelief. As former Democratic strongholds like Pennsylvania and Michigan go to Trump. By midnight, it's clear the US is not going to get its first female president.
It felt like the bully had won. It felt like women were not heard. It felt like women were being silenced. It felt like women did not matter.
I think a lot of women at the Javits Center suspected everything that would come afterwards, and I think that makes crying a very appropriate emotion.
I believe that for a number of women, the election triggered their trauma, took them back to a place where their abuser, who is already powerful, is continually seen as winning.
As dawn breaks on a new America, one of the women stunned by Trump's victory logs onto Facebook and writes a simple post.
I remember seeing a message on social media, probably Facebook, I think.
The night of the election, Teresa Shook, who is a retired lawyer from Hawaii, wrote on Facebook, "We should march on Washington." And I believe she wrote that and then went to sleep.
I remember thinking at that time, you know what? I'm going to go for this. I'm going to march. I'm going to go out there and express my rage that we have a misogynist in power.
By January 2017, a powerful network of organizers has formed, and the Women's March on Washington is born. In the days leading up to Donald Trump's inauguration, they plan a mass protest centered on the Capitol, with events in other U.S. cities and across the globe.
The fire erupted, and women all over the world found an outlet.
The plan calls for a march in Washington and other cities on January 21st, the day after Trump's inauguration ceremony.
Some people were responsible for buses, and some people were responsible for communications. Some people were responsible for making a website, fundraising.
The Women's March on Washington is poised to be the largest mass mobilization that any new administration has ever seen on their first day.
Pop stars, actors, and other high-profile women lend their names to the growing chorus of voices encouraging others to march.
This is spontaneous. This is actually like coming from the people. If we're not careful, we'll have 8 years of Donald Trump, so we have to get very active.
The organizers want the march to be broad and inclusive, but it leads to a problematic question. Is everyone invited? Are women who support Trump welcome?
Is this just a President Trump thing? Is this just an anti-Trump protest? And we say no.
January 20th, the day of Trump's inauguration, and the rainy, overcast sky hasn't dampened the spirits of his supporters.
We're glad that Hillary Clinton didn't get elected president of the United States. She believes she was of the devil.
For those arriving a day early for the Women's March, it's a disturbing welcome.
You know, you step out of Union Station in D.C., and it hit you that it's the inauguration. My son is biracial, and we walked out of the station, and I was seeing all these people in red MAGA hats, and they were scary to me. I was really afraid. I just felt really fearful for my son and I in this crowd. I didn't feel safe on the streets there. I feared a negative response from Trump supporters the whole time we were there.
Inauguration Day is filled with a growing tension, especially when self-proclaimed anarchist groups descend on the Capitol, determined to disrupt the inaugural celebrations. They clash with police, smashing shop windows and setting fire to cars. As more protesters arrive for the Women's March scheduled for the following day, they're shocked by the scenes of violence that greet them. Is this what awaits them tomorrow? January 21st, 2017. As the sun rises, Washington, D.C. is recovering from yesterday's festivities and fights during the inauguration of one of the most divisive presidents in American history. As they head toward the Capitol lawn, the organizers of the Women's March on Washington have no idea how many protesters will actually show up.
I traveled down from New York, and as I'm traveling, the traffic is insane. Someone next to me says, it's the Women's March, and I was like, can't possibly. There can't be traffic from DC backed up to New York. That's when I realized we're dealing with something that, I have never seen before in my life.
Unlike the lower than expected turnout for Trump, the crowd building that morning for the Women's March is breathtaking.
The spirits were so high. It was so early in the morning, and it was so cold. People were streaming from all directions. It was incredible.
Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, Donald Trump has got to go.
I just felt so validating. I felt like an empowered body in a wave of change.
The organizers have created something far bigger than many had ever anticipated. No one's exactly sure how many have showed up, but it's clearly more than the 200,000 that had been their goal.
I thought it was going to be like a nice little local march, and I clearly had not been checking social media enough in the weeks leading up to it. I was staggered by the turnout.
This is what a feminist looks like. Show me what a feminist looks like. This is what a feminist looks like. Show me what a feminist looks like.
Many of the protesters filling the streets of Washington are wearing distinctive pink hats. They're a reference to that misogynistic moment of Trump's, captured on camera and leaked to the press last October.
It's a pussy hat. Isn't it adorable?
Pussy hats during the march represented Donald Trump's reference to grabbing them by the pussy. So it was almost like women taking the power back.
Although the march is organized under a broad and inclusive banner, particular issues are spoken about again and again in the crowd.
They're trying to roll back our rights. Women, as immigrant communities, as Muslim communities, all the gains we've made, those of us that believe in equity and justice, that is not what this administration represents.
The crowds are clear on what the Women's March stands against. But it's not until speakers take to the stage at 10 o'clock that morning that the movement's leadership articulates its values to its followers.
For millions of Americans, Planned Parenthood is often the only trustworthy and affordable clinic.
Of all the celebrities who speak on the day, one stands out as more biting than all the others, Madonna.
The revolution starts here. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything, you.
I do remember thinking it was inappropriate. It was clumsy given kind of the eloquence of what people had to say that day.
Americans are always going on and on about the First Amendment. And it's just kind of like, if that guy can say that he can do whatever he wants to women, then why can't we say whatever we want about him?
Washington, D.C. isn't the only place where women have reclaimed the streets. From New York to Utah, marches erupt in cities and towns across America and across the world. Clearly, the Women's March has struck a universal chord with women globally. It's more than just a protest about one nation's president. It's turned into a stand against systemic sexism and misogyny in societies everywhere.
2, 4, 6, 8. Spread love, not hate.
If the leader of the free world thinks it's okay to grope women, then what message does that say to all men of the world?
We're very, very excited that people have come out in the weather that it is to stand and march with us to say we are change. I was not to know that in leaving my house that day, that I would be amongst those leading the march in London from the front line and leading the chants from the front line.
Is this about Donald Trump or is this something else now?
I think it's bigger than that, but I think he's shone a light on the urgency that these kind of marches should be taken really seriously. And actually, him as somebody we can hold up and point at and say he's part of this massive problem actually shines light on the whole thing.
I remember leaving that first march. I was exhausted, but I was exhilarated at the same time, and it was absolutely the right thing to do.
In Washington, as the march starts to wind down, it's clear that the movement that started with a simple Facebook post 2 months ago has snowballed into a mass mobilization united behind a common purpose.
We stand tall and we stand strong.
Later, it'll be reported as the largest single-day mass protest in American history, with over 4 million attending in marches across America and around 300,000 in sister marches in cities around the world. Unlike the day of Trump's inauguration, there are no reports of arrests, vandalism, or violence of any kind.
The America that I wanted to believe in, people still wanted that. They didn't want to live in this weird make America great again fantasy. Knowing that I wasn't alone and knowing that other people wanted that too made me feel hopeful about the future.
As the march ends, in a symbolic gesture, the demonstrators leave their signs outside the Trump Hotel in central Washington.
I think people wanted to find some way to make our message heard by Donald Trump in a way that he could not ignore.
Exhausted but exhilarated, no one knows if this will end up being just a one-off event or something more. The day after women's marches had taken place in Washington and across America, Donald Trump tweets a direct response to the nearly 4 million people who took to the streets in the largest single-day mass demonstration in U.S. history. Watched protests yesterday, but was under the impression that we just had an election. Why didn't these people vote? Celebs hurt cause badly.
I remember him criticizing the Women's March in that way, and in that moment, oddly enough, it just felt like such a justification for the necessity of these marches.
The Women's March has been universally deemed a success. The question for organizers is now what? How can they keep the movement's momentum going?
The heart and the soul and the blood, sweat, and tears and everything that goes into planning a mobilization of that size cannot be overstated. And what ends up happening to a lot of activists is that the horizon, the organizing horizon, doesn't go past that big mobilization and that big day.
Building on the day's energy, the Women's March launches a program called 10 Actions, 100 Days.
So the 10 acts that came as a follow-up to the march were crucial. And the reason why is that it captured that momentum from the march and channeled it into ongoing activity.
Every 10th day after the march is designated with a specific action that women and their allies can take. The first action urged followers to write to their congressperson. The third action on the 30th day is Hear Our Voice, and it ends up sparking a national conversation about the need to report rape and sexual assault. In the 12 months leading up to the Women's March, only 23% of these crimes were reported. But in its wake, that number climbs to 40%. But what really provokes an uptick in talk about violence against women is what unfolds in Hollywood that October of 2017. Articles published in both the New York Times and the New Yorker publicly accused powerful movie producer Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault and rape.
What was surprising and galvanizing was the bravery of women that stepped forward.
Risking careers, public embarrassment, and ridicule, survivors of Weinstein's assaults courageously start to speak openly to the media.
Harvey Weinstein performed, sexual acts on me against my will. He did that to many women, and he should go to jail for a long, long time.
I just hope that no other young woman is ever led up to a hotel room like that.
On October 15th, one of Weinstein's accusers, the actress Alyssa Milano, takes to Twitter and encourages other women to share their stories of being abused by men under the hashtag #MeToo. It starts an avalanche. By the end of the day, the hashtag is used 200,000 times. The following day, 500,000.
Imagine a huge mega sledgehammer breaking down this centuries-old wall of silence that has kept women at the bottom and kept women silenced for so long.
In October of 2017, the #MeToo hashtag becomes a clarion call for women to share via social media stories of abuse and oppression at the hands of men. For many, it becomes as powerful a way to register their solidarity with other women as the march was back in January. Perhaps more powerful.
The Me Too movement was propelled by the energy of the Women's March earlier that year. It spurred a lot of conversations with the men in our lives about what is and is not appropriate behavior.
That fall, much like the Women's March, the online confessions sparked by Me Too become a global phenomenon.
You have women from different parts of the world, different continents, talking about this, talking about it in different languages, saying Me Too. And that in itself is very powerful.
When the Me Too movement explodes around the world at the end of 2017, many assume it was Alyssa Milano's tweet that sparked it off and the Hollywood actors who spoke out against Harvey Weinstein. In fact, the Me Too movement had already been around for years.
This movement was created almost 10 years prior by Tarana Burke, a Black woman, to build solidarity and support within her community.
It's going to take longer than 2 years and a hashtag to make significant changes, but I do wish we were a little further along.
It took the voice of a white celebrity to really make it explode.
No matter where we go, yes means yes and no means no.
In the final weeks of 2017, Me Too sets the internet on fire. But the mass movement also starts to gain traction IRL, in real life. In November 2017, Tarana Burke herself leads a march in Los Angeles.
The fact that Me Too started on Twitter but ended on the streets is, to me, not surprising at all. Online action oftentimes has offline consequences.
As the MeToo movement sweeps across the news, founder Tarana Burke fights for the world to remember not just the experiences of the rich and famous, but also everyday women.
This isn't just about people in high-powered positions. It's not just your president. It could be your neighbor. It is your neighbor.
The Women's March and the MeToo movement have revealed to the world women's universal experience of discrimination. But the force behind these organizations is creating yet another movement, one with a hunger to take action and send a clear message to those who sexually prey on women. Time is up. It's January 1st, 2018, and a revolutionary women's movement against sexual harassment kickstarts the year with a bang. In response to MeToo, over 300 women in entertainment sign an open letter titled Dear Sisters. It announces the public launch of a new movement, Time's Up.
Dudes, your time is up. Dudes abusing your power, your time is up. Pay inequality, the time is up.
In addition to calling out men for bad behavior, Time's Up also sets up a legal defense fund to help women trying to press charges of sexual harassment in the workplace.
There are a lot of women who are not in financial positions where they can quit their job very easily. And if you do choose to quit, it means that you will probably have to restart your career at a lower level of income.
A week later, Time's Up has its own premiere in front of a TV audience of millions at the Golden Globes. On the red carpet, celebrities stage a blackout as a sign of unity, and the movement's message takes center stage.
There was such a huge support from very high-profile women, a solidarity with women all around the world to say that we are using our platform to call Time's Up.
Tarana Burke is one of the 8 activists who accompany Hollywood's biggest stars to the event.
We have a message to convey, and they were generous in sharing their platform so we can do that.
It's not just about Hollywood, it's not about celebrities, it's about everyone.
It's important for that movement to pair with women who might be overlooked in society. That was why I was so happy to see Time's Up work with a lot of agricultural laborers who are in positions where it's very easy to be exploited.
The Time's Up movement starts encouraging women to speak up about abusive men in all sorts of workplaces and industries. According to a later New York Times report, over the course of 2018, 201 powerful men will be brought down by allegations arising from MeToo.
Institutions now felt that they must be seen to react, and that the old game of just sweeping it under the carpet because a woman has complained was no longer acceptable.
In addition to Time's Up, that January of 2018 also sees the return of the event that kickstarted it all. The Women's March is back. Organizers have the momentum of the MeToo and Time's Up movements. Last year was a primal howl of anger. Now, women are demanding more specific action. But there are so many causes, so many battles worth fighting.
Trying to superimpose a single message on it for what it's for is not going to work. The group creates many satellite messages that are all important, and that allows for all this work to be done on a very local level.
In the weeks leading up to the march, the Trump administration is faced with a political crisis. Negotiations in Congress over getting money for Trump's long-hyped wall have broken down.
We're going to have a wall to keep out deadly drug dealers, dangerous traffickers, and violent criminal cartels.
And the federal government is forced to shut down. As well as being in the forefront of national politics, the wall and immigration become galvanizing issues for the upcoming Women's March.
The issue of immigration, as a result of Trump's xenophobia, really became the issue that drove people to becoming involved.
Build bridges, not walls.
Build bridges, not walls. Build bridges, not walls.
It's been a year, but the passion of the protesters is still there, and so are the celebrities.
We have a racist in the White House. We have a sexist in the White House.
I don't think he's been a very good president. Obviously, our country's more divided than ever.
Once again, hundreds of thousands of women turn out in locally organized sister marches, not just in the US, but around the globe. And everywhere, the power of the MeToo and Time's Up movements can be felt.
It's amazing. I mean, last year was really inspirational. Here we are jumping up and down saying time's up.
Back in the United States, Women's March organizers know that it's more important than ever to make their voices heard. There's a lot at stake because 2018 is the midterm elections. Women see a chance to get political power for themselves, and they go public with a plan.
Power to the polls. 2018, we will flip that house. We will let them know that we are here.
But despite all the solidarity on display in the 2018 marches, cracks of dissent start to show up in the movement. Some are starting to wonder exactly who and what the march represents. Even the once ubiquitous pussy hat comes under fire.
It somehow became an unfortunate symbol of the women's movement against the inclusivity that we often preach.
It's not inclusive of trans women, and it's not inclusive of women of color. Not every woman, has a pussy, and it's not all pink, was the feedback. And so many people have said, I'm not going to participate in it.
Still, the Women's March is able to flex its organizational muscle in 2018, kicking off online debates about gender equality, raising issues about Title IX in women's sports, and addressing the age-old problem of the gender pay gap. But it's MeToo which dominates Twitter that year, as the hashtag is used more than 19 million times. In May, the man whose crimes sparked the MeToo movement is brought to court and charged with rape.
Harvey Weinstein just getting out of his car to go in these doors, present himself to police.
Harvey Weinstein's bail is set at $1 million. It's a significant moment for MeToo, but will there be a price to pay? The MeToo movement has shown how accusations can destroy a man's career. There's bound to be a reaction, and there is. Throughout 2018, the MeToo movement continues to make a huge impact. Companies start listening to women who make allegations of sexual misconduct, and they launch new programs to educate their staff.
Every show is having sexual harassment meetings, mandatory. We had one at Disney the other day.
But a storm is brewing. Trump and his supporters claim MeToo persecutes men for just being men, even when women speak up. Critics all over the world also express their concerns. On January 9th, a group of French women, including iconic actress Catherine Deneuve, signed an open letter attacking the movement. Men have been punished summarily, forced out of their jobs when all they did was touch someone's knee or try to steal a kiss. Some men now claim to be confused about boundaries of acceptable behavior.
There are some undefined areas where people aren't sure what is and isn't okay, and what Me Too and Time's Up say is, well, it's time to learn.
Conservative pundits say the Me Too movement is criminalizing courtship itself, creating fear and even paranoia.
I hear men saying, well, no, I don't know what to say to women. I'm afraid to say anything to them. And my feeling is, just be professional.
In 2018, Trump's controversial conduct with women continues. It's reported $130,000 of campaign funds was paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election to cover up an alleged affair.
No words. He should not be president of the United States.
Although it's later confirmed that Daniels received a payment from Trump's attorney, she loses a defamation lawsuit against Trump, and the president throws a personal attack, calling her horseface in a public tweet. The president also jumps on the MeToo backlash that year, especially when his nominee for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, is catapulted into controversy. Christine Blasey Ford testifies before Congress, claiming that Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her back in high school. Her powerful testimony sends shockwaves around the world.
I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling.
The allegations against Kavanaugh become a national debate over the MeToo movement itself.
We believe survivors!
Should women always be believed in cases of sexual assault? Or do they need to provide proof beyond a reasonable doubt?
The MeToo movement is an important conversation, but in this instance, we're looking at allegations and simply allegations. They have not been substantiated.
It's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of.
How is it that the allegations are a sham when they won't do an FBI investigation and there hasn't yet been a hearing? Women bring credible claims and no one wants to investigate. I thought we were doing better than that.
Kavanaugh's hearings provoke angry protests from those urging his disqualification. Supporters of the MeToo movement take to the streets by the thousands.
Women will never forget this.
I threatened to spray paint Brett Kavanaugh as a rapist on the Brooklyn courthouse, and my husband told me that he would bail me out if I went rogue with graffiti.
But on October 6, 2018, despite the accusations against him, the Senate narrowly confirms Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. The high-profile loss is a blow for the MeToo movement. The Women's March itself also becomes embroiled in controversy. One of the organizers speaks up in support of Louis Farrakhan.
We need to put the American flag down.
The controversial leader of the Nation of Islam.
One of the march leaders had referred to Louis Farrakhan as the greatest of all time. And Louis Farrakhan has referred to Adolf Hitler as a very great man.
But Farrakhan denied reports he was anti-Semitic and said he actually called Hitler wickedly great.
That led to some people withdrawing their support from the march that year.
Just like that, popular support for the Women's March starts to evaporate.
We listened to the critique and we partnered really closely with Jewish organizations, made a number of statements. We have a number of Jewish women who are serving on the board.
Once those allegations are out there, it's very hard to get rid of. That is a stain that is hard to clean away.
The Women's March starts to bleed support.
There were a lot of women of color who felt like the march was not inclusive to them.
It's very difficult because women are affected by many things. We tried to become more reflective of the communities that we serve in terms of composition of our board and staff.
The timing couldn't be worse. As the 2018 elections approach, the movement seems more divided and dispirited than ever. But beneath the surface of the turmoil of 2018, the seeds the Women's March planted 2 years before start to bear fruit. Across America, record numbers of women are running for office, many inspired by the Women's March.
A lot of women who never thought of running after that. You know, they just, after the Women's March, they said, why not me?
One of those women running for Congress is former bartender Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, hoping to unseat a powerful incumbent in the Bronx.
AOC, the coolest candidate any of us have ever seen. She's 29. She'll still make a margarita on Instagram. She carries this energy that says, you are enough.
Seeing what was going on at the end of 2016, I just felt like we could do so much better and we could be so much better.
You can try to ban us from coming into the country, but you can't ban us from being elected to the U.S. Congress.
Pink Wave gave a lot of hope back to people that we will still see a female president in their lifetime.
The real test comes on November 6th, Election Day. As the polls close, women all across America eagerly await the results.
I was so nervous. To give myself a little bit of distance from the phone was to just get in the car because I can't obsessively scroll on Twitter while I'm driving, right? So I'm driving, I'm pulling over to a gas station, I'm checking Twitter, I'm like, okay, breathe.
When the results come in for the 2018 midterm elections, the numbers are staggering. The women of America have made history.
I start getting texts from people who are saying, you know, this one, that one is winning.
A record-breaking 117 women win elections that day. 20 House seats are won by first-time candidates, and the Senate now has 25 women, more than it's ever had in its history. At the polls, the Women's March has paid off.
We absolutely can take the energy from the streets and move it to the ballot box.
Seeing a Muslim woman in Congress, seeing a Hispanic young woman in Congress, that was such an empowering wave.
Oh, thank God. Maybe everybody doesn't just want this to be a really racist, sexist country, and maybe we should start voting for women.
It's fine. What should people draw from your win tonight?
Oh, they should draw that the Kansas 3rd Congressional District is ready for change.
We made history.
The election is a success, but the legacy of the Women's March remains uncertain. The 2019 edition is not as well attended.
Quite a lot of people got a little bit disillusioned with the Women's March.
That year, we had a blizzard that covered from the Midwest to the East Coast.
Despite the bad weather, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shows up at the New York City March to deliver a passionate reminder of what the march is all about: empowering women.
In 2018, we took the House of Representatives, and through 2020, we're gonna take the White House and the Senate too.
I feel like a lot of ground has been covered and a lot of ground has been won through these movements, but there's still a lot to do.
When we have equal representation in government, then maybe we can say our work is done, but we're a long way from that.
What started as a simple post on Facebook kicked off a fierce female resistance, culminating in the largest single-day protests in American history.
We will not back down.
Today, the Women's March remains a global phenomenon that's united over 7 million people worldwide.
This is our time. This is our moment.
The women's marches have helped in creating that amplified voice globally and platform to ensure that progressive women's rights must be front and center.
We're speaking our minds, we're making changes, and we don't really need to meet up with pink hats to make that happen.
The Women's March and the MeToo movement are always going to be a process and not just another hashtag where, all right, we made it mainstream, so the work is done here. It's going to have to be an everyday fight for the rest of our lives.
We will always be in the fight until the day that it's not necessary. We're in for a penny, in for a pound. We're here for a marathon.